Hey guys, and welcome to the Making Spirituality Real podcast, episode 3. So, with this episode, the thing that I anticipated happened, as in I received questions on my socials because of the previous podcast. Honestly, I was surprised it happened because I don't have any use for now, and yet the questions still appeared. The last episode was about the manifestation of divine feminine regardless of your birth gender in our culture, and how can you heal that within yourself. I give you 3 simple basic tips. And of course, so the question that appeared was, what about the divine masculine? Because, I'm guessing some people, despite all the disclaimers, didn't fully listen in or understand that this was for the divine feminine within each and every one of us, including men. And the reason why I touched on the subject is because that is the problem that exists in the world and society nowadays, that the divine feminine is so non-existent and trampled into obliteration practically, or being swiped away. If anything, being subjugated to please the toxic models of behaviors. But I think actually it did turn out to be a good thing, because now I can explain how the masculine, as a result, is equally misused in, again, each and every one of us, both women, men, or any other assigned gender that we have in our modern society. So today's episode is going to be about how to heal your divine masculine regardless of your gender. So first of all, just like in the last episode, we're going to talk briefly about how that energy works. I touched on it again for those who haven't seen the previous Divine Feminine episode. I touched on briefly that Divine Feminine actually is the resting space that makes room for the action that needs to take. One cannot exist without the other. Rest cannot exist without action. Action can't exist without rest. So when you heal your feminine, you heal the resting space. But just because the masculine principle is the more active one, doesn't mean that it doesn't need healing. And how does that manifest? How does it need healing? Well, the problem is that in the modern world, the masculine is not conscious. How would a healed masculine principle work? You would take accountable, dharmic, healthy, productive actions only towards goals that benefit both your personal life, your loved ones, and society. Now, let's look at the world around us and ask ourselves, is our society surrounded by an energy that is completely accountable in its assertion of masculinity? Hell no, right? To give you more an example of how that could look. For example, it is a masculine action to build something new, to construct something, right? The whole construction worker stereotype. And there's nothing wrong with erecting buildings, because, we need buildings to have shelter from the rain, It's been happening for millennia. If this is not a fresh idea, we haven't been hunters-gatherers in a long time. And even then, people were making primitive shelters from tree branches. That is also a masculine action. But there is a difference between building things in accordance with nature, again in accordance with the feminine, creating them in a way that actually serves our purpose, that serves society, and there's a difference between building them in such a way that it destroys the environment and destroys society. And one of the biggest curses of the modern masculine, both men and women, is that achievement is being glorified for the sake of achievement, without looking at the fact that the achievement often is hurting ourselves and those around us. For example, you can even, again, be a woman who has a very strong masculine side to herself, and you can be more of a go-getter type of personality. Like, there are women who are professional athletes, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. Everyone's unique. But let's say that you actually do become a professional athlete. Well, let's say that you join that because you really do love sports, and when you are achieving something in sports, you feel that you are doing it because you really care about it, makes you feel happy. See, that is the masculine principle in the woman used, or in any human being for that matter, used correctly. You're passionate about something, so you make effort to go for it, right? Even the action of me picking up the phone or recording this podcast is me using my masculine energy, because it's me exerting some sort of force and pressure to be able to communicate something with you, to be able to make my mark. But I'm talking about something that I'm good at and something that I care about. But in our modern world, the single biggest hurting factor is that we are forced to take our masculine energies and take actions in which we are lied to or actions that we do not agree with. Now, a society needs to function naturally, so people need to do certain labor tasks, even if they are tedious, even if they are unpleasant, or we think they're hard, or we think they're gross. Like, someone has to deal with the sewer system, right? These people actually get paid quite handsomely, so they wouldn't quit their jobs. Funnily enough, but some tasks are unnecessary, even if they're just not that pleasant, and that has always been a part of life. Even if you're a housewife, you're gonna have to take out the trash, or pick up after your pet. That's not nice either, but dirty work is part of life, right? But in our society, we have created jobs, situations, opportunities that are based completely on a lie. As in, we have managed to tempt people into using their masculine in a way that is wasteful. And that manifests as drain, bodily sickness. If you're a man, it can even manifest as impotency. In women, it can manifest as frigidity, because if she has just used all her masculine drive, women also have testosterone, by the way, just in a lower healthy level. If you have just used all the drive to work 8 hours at a job that feels meaningless because you felt like you've done something that could be done by a machine, or something that could have been completely avoided, and pointless tasks are plentiful in the modern working world, then you're not gonna come home feeling satisfied. You're not gonna come home feeling like you did a good job. Let's say you have a house with a garden, and then you really love your garden, and then you have to plow the whole garden so that you can plant some seeds, and then you can have your own vegetables and fruit in the spring. That is dirty work that takes time, but that is dirty work with payoff, right? You did it for a reason. Okay, you have soil under your fingernails. You're sweating. You're exhausted. Your back hurts from kneeling and crouching in hard positions the whole day. But then you have harvest during the spring, summer season, right? So it was for a reason, and that's okay. Or even, let's say that you're part of a hierarchy of something that you really believe in. You're part of an organization that has a noble goal, and maybe you are, of course, not the CEO of that organization straight away, but you believe in what the leader of the organization offers. You believe in their principle. You believe in this group by itself. You believe in its founding principles, and you are happy to contribute to that. So you don't mind, even if you have to start your way from the bottom up. See, that will be beautiful. But again, what is another sign of a distorted masculine in our times? Corrupt organizations. Organizations where many people are kind of being plugged like cogs in the wheel. It's the whole matrix spectrum is very much the distorted divine masculine. Being plugged into something and having your masculine life force drained from you for the sake of someone else's benefit, with no benefit to yourself. With no feeling of satisfaction, with no actual participation to society or your personal life besides exploitation. That is the single biggest cause of distorted masculine of our times. And the very sad part is that we are being told as a result that those who don't want to participate in the hoax are lazy, and they don't want to make any effort to improve our lives. And that is a very easy thing to do. Is basically like social gaslighting, right? You gaslight society, and then people end up gaslighting each other because they end up believing in it. And then people end up thinking, well, that if you're not enslaved, and if you want to participate in the world and make efforts in a way that don't abuse you or exploit you, then you don't want to do anything, you're lazy, and there's something wrong with you, and and you're basically a broke, jobless loser, right? Again, that is an assault on your masculine energy. Think about why so many men especially feel underappreciated, feel frustrated, or end up being unfaithful when they come home. Because their masculine drive often is being exploited in professions they don't always like. Of course, that's not everyone. Some men also do like what they do if they're lucky, but those they don't, they get there to basically do a paycheck, because basically it's a parasitic relationship that feeds on itself. But then their feeling of actual achievement is still unsatisfied. The feeling of conquest that the masculine needs to fulfill lies dormant, and it just hasn't been tapped into, because the man instead turns into a robot. So what does he do? He hunts for other women. He hunts for the thrill of excitement that he would do if he actually used his masculine energy to achieve something that would actually empower him. But because our society has kind of made the masculine brain dead and unconscious, the man doesn't even realize that because he's just doing what everyone else is doing. And that kind of man, that kind of masculine energy can't even go back home and say and reflect and realize, then I really hate what I'm doing and I feel like I have to do it to make money so that I can be admired by women. But honestly, if I could, I would use my masculine energy doing something else, because my dream is to build a house in the woods. It's just an example, of course. There are other ways to do it, right? You don't have to be the whole live of the land person. Maybe there's someone who actually does, feel fulfillment, coding because it's the passion of their life. It does happen. Some people are extreme nerds, are extreme inventors. But see, this is the reason why so many people nowadays are transitioning into independent employment through social media platforms, because there is such a collective dissatisfaction from the misuse of the masculine being redirected towards actions that do not fulfill its ambitions and its desire for feeling like you're making a contribution, that the social discontent is turning into a volcano that's about to erupt. So I think I'm really glad that I touched on this, because it is very hard to question something when it surrounds us so deeply. And it's kind of in a way a reflection of the feminine, right? The feminine has been the feminine has been trained to endorse abusive situations as a result, because the feminine has been endorsed to, instead of looking at her own comfort, to support the abusive masculine. And so again, it's a pathology that feeds on itself. So since since this is going to get longer than I expected, let's look at what can you do to fix your masculine, regardless of whether you are a man or a woman in our modern times. Step 1, you need to ask yourself what you truly want to achieve in your life. Again, regardless of your gender identity, regardless of your interest, whatever it is, doesn't mean that if it's stupid or if it's not like what everyone else is doing. What really gets you out of bed? Because see, getting out of bed, again, having the drive, is a masculine principle in each and every one of us. We all get up for something. What do you get up for? Ask yourself that question every day. Reflect on it. Wake up with it. Don't bury it under a mountain of tasks that you do because everyone told you to do them. Second step is have discipline in action. Discipline in action is masculine principle too. As in, you have to be self-governed and self-directed. The masculine principle is the one that protects something because it cares for it. Nobody really has to tell it what to do. It just wants to do it, becomes from the inside, and as a result, it becomes a form of voluntary, loving ownership over any project, situation, person that you care about. But in our modern times, we're kind of used to being mindless drones, as in we are doing something because someone forces us into it and someone pulls us into it, but we don't really have our own discipline. Like, think about it. How many people actually are capable of performing certain tasks and no one is looming over them and no one is telling them what to do? Again, it's the difference between having a boss yelling at you and telling you what to do all the time, even if you hate his guts and you hate what you're doing, and having the discipline to get up every day and commit to a project, a business, a family of your choosing. These are two very different things. Yeah, sure, we all have to pay our dues, but even realizing that you have to sometimes do things that you don't like is something that you choose to do voluntarily because you know there will be a payoff, long-term payoff, in an area that you care about. Again, it all comes down to discipline. Why did I post content for what has been 5 years now? Even though as of recording this, not really super popular yet. Because I believe that using my masculine energy into a project and into a lifestyle that I have decided on is something that is valuable. And so I have long-term discipline to commit to it. Not because anyone was telling me to. Now, step 3, take full responsibility for what you desire and what you have become disciplined and committed to. And what I mean to say is that the masculine principle is also the father principle, just as the feminine principle is the mother principle. We each have our internal father and mother that exist inside our heads that are based on the upbringing that we have received. So here you have to become fully responsible for your own life as a whole. This is something that is missing in our times. We feel like whatever corporate dedication that we have is the one that is responsible for our lives. We feel enslaved to entities larger than ourselves that don't even have our best interests in heart. We give ourselves away to modern medicine completely, not selectively when necessary, but mindlessly. That's why some people go to doctors like it's a hobby, not because they absolutely need to. Well, in fact, each and every one of us has a responsibility for our own fate and our own life. That is also a positive masculine principle. If you look at a typical father stereotype, when there is a man that's taking care of his wife and his family, and he really cares for them, he doesn't go to a search engine or to an office building asking, well, what should I do with my family? What should I raise with my family? He does what is right for the family because they have sat down together and decided to, and because everyone's energies within the household agreed to it. But what do we have happening in our modern times? Although from my experience, from what I gather, it's more of an American phenomenon. Men move their entire families across the whole country because the company told them to. The kid is miserable. The kids they lose all their friends because they move all the time. The wife is miserable because maybe she had a community that she really liked in one state and she has to move to another one. But the company is God. So the man makes decisions for the family he should be loyal to. And he gives away the responsibility for his own life, for his own destiny, towards someone else. And that is something that, honestly, we all have started to do collectively on such a big scale that it's terrifying. We no longer feel like we're responsible for our bodies, our minds, our souls, and our lives. We feel like there's someone else who dictates the terms. And of course, participating in something bigger and having a collective responsibility by doing things as just not polluting the environment is a fantastic thing. It's like, the one thing that the Japanese got right. That's why it's so clean over there, right? That even if it does get dirty, it gets cleaned up overnight. Even in the loudest tourist districts, there is a positive form of collective accountability, of course. But the negative form is mindless obedience, and in a way relinquishing the responsibility for your own existence, for the fact that you are an embodied physical soul that takes actions. It's like playing a computer game, and normally when you do play a game, you decide where your character goes. You decide what class you pick, whether it's like a warrior class or a sorcerer class. You decide what quest to do first. Now imagine that instead of you, it's the game plays itself for you, and you don't really have any choices. Which, by the way, more and more games are constructed this way. That gives you an illusion of a parent choice. But in reality, you don't really have choices. Why do we like games that at least seem to offer, or at least give the illusion to offer as many choices as possible? Because it makes us feel like we're in control of our destiny. Naturally, this universe is a complex is a complex being that kind of blends in the fact that we have some measure of control through, or like illusion of control through certain planets astrologically, while in reality there are also karmas that we fulfill spiritually. It's a paradox of the universe that free will and predestination are the same thing and they exist together. But here we're talking about the masculine action part. And even if you are predestined to exercise a certain way, make sure that you don't give that part of yourself up. And again, all of this is regardless of any assigned gender that you have. Now, think about how this can manifest to show you the contrast. Let's say if you are a woman, so you can understand how the masculine works in you. The masculine here can be also the power of choice and the power of direction that you take as a woman, even in very feminine tasks. So, and after this, I'm also going to give an opposite example of how caring for your feminine can look for the masculine. So let's say if you're a woman, you have a choice of which nail salon do you want to go to, what brand of clothes or cosmetics do you want to pick. So you do research and you actively pick the one, you consciously pick the one that is good for you, that's tested, the one that you believe in for your own personal reasons. You don't mindlessly just grab the first thing on the shelf because it was advertised. One of the ways actually that people misuse their masculine energy is that they misuse their money. Unconscious purchases are also here a travesty of this misused masculine that has relinquished responsibility for their own life path or the details of their own life. So again, as a woman, the other thing that you can do in a way to caretake for both your masculine and feminine is to embark onto responsible motherhood. You become a mother because you feel like it's something that you really want, not because you feel like society tells you that you have to be a mother as a woman, because otherwise you feel pressured into it and then you raise an unhappy child from a mother that didn't really want to be a mother in the first place, right? Not all women have a life path of becoming mothers in a conventional sense. Some women are more caretaking other projects, and it's completely okay. Now, for the masculine principle, how to instead find healthy feminine outlets, make sure that you are contained by a feminine force that feeds you instead of draining you. How does it work? Well, let's say the society tells you that you should date a certain type of woman that is hot, that wears, 9-inch heels, has a double DD cup and a super thin waist, and is always, on fleek, as they say, and all that stuff. And you feel that this is the kind of woman that you have to date so that you can look attractive in front of your friends, your family, and because that's what society applauds, right? But that woman actually doesn't really care for your needs and doesn't actually provide you the space, doesn't actually give you the feminine energy that you need. Not because she's necessarily bad, but because she doesn't just have the compatibility that you need. It's very individual. And yet you feel like she's the better choice because she's universally approved. It's also the same about housing, because housing is a feminine principle. Even as a man, you should pick the kind of housing that you feel comfortable in, not the kind that's just going to make you look cool, because looking cool is the new thing, right? So these are just very simple, mundane examples of how you can choose things that are healthier for you for both the polarities. And it all starts with sovereign choice on both ends. Anyway, this has definitely been my longest podcast so far, and I don't want to make it too long, so I'm going to end it here. And in case you have any more questions, I encourage you to ask them either privately, like someone has, or in the comments on either of my socials. Of course, you can do it also under the video here. And thank you so much, and I would really appreciate it if you could join my channel or give it a thumbs up so that it can reach more people. And thank you so much for listening to me if you have stayed with me that long, and I hope that you got away something important from this for yourself. Take care, bye-bye.